All right, welcome everybody to today's free webinar provided to you by Junior Achievement of New Jersey. Today's session is all about building a budget. Budgeting helps you live within your financial means without using credit. It is important for every person, whether rich or poor, to budget his or her finances. At Junior Achievement, we believe in empowering the New Jersey community to being their best selves, but also their best financial selves, and how to stay financially independent and responsible. Now, before we get into today's content, let's go over some housekeeping. This video platform that we are using allows us to communicate through the chat box, and you'll see that on the right-hand side of your screen. All lines are muted except for myself. And just a heads up, this meeting is being recorded and will be made available for future use. At this point, let's get comfortable using the chat box. Say hello to us and tell us who you are and where you're from and what school you go to. We'll be using this feature throughout the presentation. Okay, we have one response here. Hey, Jocelyn from Bordertown High School. Hello, Mia. Okay, so for today's agenda, today we will discover efficient budgeting tactics that will help you stay organized with your financial needs. We will later look into case studies and put what we learned to the test. I will also be answering any questions at the end with a Q&A. Okay, so a little bit about me is I was a JA student back in middle school and in high school where I volunteered my time as a high school hero. And now I'm a freshman at Villanova University. I'm a business major pursuing a degree in management information systems and human resource management. For our objective today, after this presentation, you'll be able to build a foundation to make intelligent, lifelong personal financial decisions. We will also go over topics like income, saving, and budgeting, in addition to fun interactive activities. You will discover the importance of spending money wisely and create a personal budget based on your savings and lifestyle goals. Okay, so for setting the stage, it seems hard to believe that one day you can have a fortune and the next day nothing. Yet that's common with many actors, musicians, athletes, and lottery winners. So what do you think could have led to their fall from financial grace? So you can type your answers in the chat box. Why do you think people like actors, musicians, athletes, and lottery winners go from one day having everything to the next almost nothing? We have spending irresponsibly. Yeah, so that's definitely lack of financial education. Yes, so these are very important topics that do play a factor into this financial downfall. And then here we have possible answers. Could have been having too many expenses, impulse buying, poor choices between needs and wants, or not setting any goals. So yes, everyone was correct. So here we have a quick video from riches to rags. So as opposed to rags to riches to rags, and it will explain briefly a situation of a Florida woman who lost $13 million from winning the lottery. And let me know if you guys can hear the audio. Okay, I don't know if you guys were able to hear that or if it was a little bit distorted, but the story basically covered a segment on lottery winners, and they also covered a portion where a woman blew almost, I think it was 20 something $1 million, and it was all on careless financial decisions. And here we have, oh, okay. So, and here we have a quick, excerpt. It says about 70% of people who win a lottery or receive a large windfall go bankrupt within a few years. And that's according to the National Endowment for Financial Education. Okay, so for some definitions here, teens often have a hard time determining the difference between needs and wants. There are times that items are purchased because of quick, unplanned decisions based on an immediate want. This is known as impulse buying. So before we proceed, just to have a few clarifications, expenditures, that is the money that is spent on goods, services, and bills. Impulse buying, that is making a purchase based on immediate want or due to the pressure of advertising. Long-term goals, which are goals that take a year or more to accomplish, and short-term goals, which typically ranges from 3 months to a year to accomplish. Okay, so needs. All of us, teens especially, have a hard time determining the difference between needs and wants. Needs are the goods and services that people cannot survive without. Wants are goods and services that make people comfortable or content, but that are not necessary to live. Most teens have their basic needs taken care of by their parents or caretakers, so they are more concerned with the things that they want. We're going to take a look at the difference between needs and wants as we examine spending habits and categorize expenditures, which is money spent on goods and services. So can you tell me what are other examples of needs? Keep in mind, needs are goods and services that people cannot survive without. Okay, here we have housing, money, medicine. Oh, that's a good one. Food, that's a big one. Okay. Yeah, these are great examples of needs. And here we have possible answers could have included food, water, air, clothing, and shelter. Okay, so needs can be met in different ways. See, you may need water, but do you truly need that expensive bottle of water? You may need food, but is a potato chips bag a need? You may need clothing, but is a popular designer jacket a need? Okay, so for wants, wants includes goods and services that make people comfortable or content, but that are not necessary to live. So what are some examples of your current wants right now? This could be anything. Wants, luxury goods, vacation, designer things, cars, definitely vacation. That's a really great one. And I don't know about you guys, but I've been eyeing that new PS5 for any gamers in here. More shoes. Yeah, definitely a want. Smart water bottles. Yeah, these are all great examples of wants. Okay, so here we're gonna have a quick little activity where we'll look at three different case studies and test your knowledge on if these are describing wishful wants or necessary needs. Okay, so the first one is Casey. So Casey is preparing to leave for college in the fall. She lives in New York but will be going to school in California, so she is planning on buying a car to get her there. She wants to buy something reliable, so she is deciding between a new car that will cost $17,000 with 0 miles and a new navigation system, and a 3-year-old car with 7,000 miles and no navigation system for $12,000. She has $10,000 in savings that she will use for the purchase, and she'll take out a loan for the remaining amount. So, based on this scenario, what are some of Casey's wants? Then you guys can type that in the chat box and let me know. What are some of Casey's wants? Reliability, reliable car. Okay, so here we have that her wants is a new car, 0 miles, having 0 miles, or navigation system. So these are all things that she does not need, but she'll probably take into consideration into buying a new car. And what are her needs? I think you guys mentioned that is reliability, reliable car, and here we have yes, transportation. So she's in need of a car. Okay, so for the second case study, here we have Stephanie. So Stephanie received $500 from her grandparents for her high school graduation. She's been longing to buy a new watch and update her wardrobe because she's starting a new job in 2 weeks. But next month, she's moving out on her own and will need to pay 3 months of rent in advance, which totals $1,500. If she uses the money to buy the watch and clothes, she thinks she can save enough money from her new job to pay for rent, but she's not sure. What are her wants? And here we have a new watch and a new wardrobe. Yes, you guys are on the money. So her wants include new watch and new clothes. So these are all things that she does not need to survive. So these are all wants. And what are some of her needs based on this scenario? Money for rent, to pay rent, so she needs shelter. Yes, these are all her wants. And here we have, yes, so paying 3 months of rent in advance. So these are all her needs. She needs the shelter. And lastly, here we have our third case study, which is Michelle. Michelle's been invited to go to a 3-day concert with her friends. The only catch is that it's a 9-hour drive, and traveling for an entire weekend means she'll need lots of cash. She estimates that gas, food, tickets, and camping will cost around $400. She has a car payment of $250 coming up, and her $89 cell phone bill is due at the end of the month. She also needs to buy her mom a birthday gift, which she thinks will cost $50. Michelle has $700 in savings. So, what are some of Michelle's wants? Here we have going to the concert and all of the expenses that come from it. And yes, that's correct. So that would be the extra expenses, the $400 from the road trip to the concert. Um, okay, so here we have concert. Yes, that's Michelle's want, concert. She doesn't need it to survive. And some of her needs. What are some of her needs? Cell phone bill, car payment, buying mom a gift, phone bill. And yes, so in this scenario, her needs are paying the cell phone bill, making her car payments, and buying her mom a gift. Okay, so after that practice, here we have, what are some of your wants? What is important to you? Do you have any short-term goals or long-term? Do your goals reflect what is important to you? Do you have an idea of what you want your future to look like? These are all questions you should ask yourselves. And into this will also factor into our goal setting, which we'll go over on the next slide. Okay, so for goal setting, so setting goals can help students determine which things are most important to them. Short-term goals are objectives that can be accomplished in less than a year. Setting and achieving these smaller goals reward students for their efforts to save and limit their spending. Meeting goals generally builds the confidence necessary to continue saving. Long-term goals are not usually realized for a year or more. Whether you may want to go to college, buy a car, or plan a trip to Europe, having long-term goals keeps you focused on the future. Goals may be monetary or personal, but both should drive saving and spending. Goal setting will help you realize that the good financial habits you establish now will guide you throughout your adult lives. So for goal setting, you should know what you want your money to do for you. You should think about the goals you can accomplish this year and think about the goals that will take more than 1 year to accomplish. And goal setting is an efficient way of focusing on what you wish to accomplish and staying on track. Okay, so in the chat box, what are some of your goals? They can be either short-term goals, long-term goals, or both. Buying a car, that's a really good goal that requires saving and budgeting. And that's a perfect segue into our following slide, building an emergency fund. That is very important. So this also plays into like hard choices. So reaching your goals, sometimes you must make hard choices. No one can have all of the things that they want. Choosing how you spend your money now can help you save to meet your future goals. In the following slide, we will investigate spending money wisely. So before purchasing an item, you should ask yourselves these questions. Is it a necessity or is it a luxury? And when determining if it's a necessity, you should ask yourself, does it sustain me? Does it house me? Or do I need it to live? Right? So these are all things like water, food, things like that. Or you should ask yourself, is this a luxury? Can I manage without it? Or is it essential to meet a goal? So these are all questions you should ask yourselves, which will determine how you should spend your money wisely. And this also leads into impulse purchases. So stores and advertisers have different methods that encourage you to make impulse purchases. Stores use tactics like store layout, advertising, pricing promotions, and product demonstrations to get you to purchase an item on the spot. The best way to avoid an impulse purchase is to give yourselves, approximately 3 days to think about the purchase. And a perfect example of store layout, stores will typically place items in the case of grocery stores, they will place more expensive items in front or below shelves so it's easier to reach. So this is a perfect example of store layout tactic that stores use to get you to buy things, typically the most expensive items on the spot. Okay, so before we continue, we should look at some of these vocabularies that we'll be using in the following slides. So budgeting, as we established, is a record of income and spending and a plan for managing money. Discretionary income is the money that is available to spend on goods and services that are not essential. Okay, so what is a budget? Good financial planning requires developing and using a budget. Budgeting helps you live within your financial means without using credit. It is important for every person, either rich or poor, to budget their finances. You may discuss finances with adults to gain insight into ways to create and sustain financial freedom and to avoid excessive debt. So, a budget is a record of income and expenditures. It is a plan for managing money, and it is a tool to track saving and spending. So, here we have the average family budget in the United States. For housing, the average family budget is about 32.9% of your income. For transportation, it is about 15.8% of your income. For food, it's 12.6% of your income. For personal insurance and pensions, it is 11.9% of your income. For other miscellaneous expenses, it is 6.9% of your income. For healthcare, it is 8.1% of your income. For entertainment, it's 5.1% of your income. For clothing, it is 3.1% of your income. And lastly, for cash, it is 3.6% of your income. And this allows you to see a breakdown of the average family's income and how it's broken up to different expenses throughout the month. Okay, so when preparing a budget, it is important to consider needs before wants. The first categories that should be budgeted are those that provide for needs such as housing and groceries. You should also plan to pay yourself first, which is a concept that calls for automatically saving a portion of income for future use. And this, a perfect example for this is building an emergency fund. And discretionary income is the amount of an individual's income that is left for spending, investing, or saving after paying taxes and after paying for personal necessities like food, shelter, and clothing. It includes money spent on luxury items, vacations, and non-essential goods and services. So here we have like a couple of steps where that you should consider when creating a budget. So determining the net monthly income. This is your income after taxes that you take home. Categorizing your expenditures, your expenses, while prioritizing needs first. Distributing funds to meet needs and obligations, and determining the amount of money that's left over for your wants. And here we have a simple T-chart which you can do at home at your own leisure time. And it's a perfect way to categorize and organize all a all of your all of your needs and wants, and then determining which to prioritize over the other. And this is a really good tool to use so that you can visually see everything separated. All right. And when it comes to budgeting, it's important to recognize that budgeting doesn't necessarily have to deal with only financial circumstances. You can definitely budget your time. And here we have a way of breaking down our day. So a portion of your time may go to school, a portion of your time may go to working or a job if you have a job currently. It may go to homework, and depending on whatever you do on a daily basis, you can budget your time accordingly. And doing so and having that visual aspect can definitely help you see the amount of time you have left over, or to keep track on how much time you should be spending on each daily task. So you can also budget your time as well as budgeting your finances. And here we have the average teen spending in the US. About 20% of teens spend their income on clothing, and teens usually spend 20% of their income on food, 10% of their income on accessories and personal care, 10% of their income on shoes, 8% of their income on their car or saving for a car, 8% of their income on electronics, 4% of their income on music and movies, 5% of their income on concerts and events, 3% of their income on other miscellaneous expenses, and 1% of their income on books. Okay, so here is a perfect example of what a budget looks like, and it doesn't have to necessarily follow this format, but with this format, we have everything separated by categories so we can clearly see where each expense is coming from. So here we have the first line in income one. The amount is $2,000. So this is a stream of income coming into this person's um, budget into the month. And the second line of income is $1,000. And we have other source of income of $250 for the month. And once we add up all of these amounts, we have a total monthly income of $3,250 for the month. Then, once we take into consideration the many monthly expenses that we have, like rent, mortgage, electricity, here we have all of the expenses. And once we total all of these up for the month, we have a total monthly expense of $2,738. And once we subtract our expenses from our income, we have a balance of $512. And this is also our discretionary income. So this is like a really great layout to look at. You can budget your income like this or any other way that you may find easy or suitable for your situation. But this is a great way to see how much money is coming in during the month, how much money is coming out, and how much money is left over after all expenses. Okay, and that concludes today's presentation. We have another webinar next week, and Mia will be sending updates on that via email after we finish this presentation. And if you have any other questions, feel free to email Mia or myself, and the email will appear in the chat box. So at this moment, if you guys have any questions, feel free to type that in or okay, so here we have, can you tell us about your college expenses as a freshman versus your high school expenses? Yes, this is a great story for you guys. So as a high school student, my family normally took care of all of my needs. So that included housing, food. I didn't have to pay for anything. And I did have a part-time job in high school. I worked at American Eagle and I used the money that I made from there to save up for a car. So that was a goal of mine to have. And when I compare that to my college expenses, I definitely had to pay for my own books, which was not expensive, which was very expensive, and I had to purchase books each semester. So that was an added expense that I had. I also had to pay for tuition, and I live on campus, so I also have to pay for room and housing, which was the shelter that we previously discussed on needs. And I also have to pay for transportation, my own transportation, if I wanted to go into the city, buy any groceries, and my meal plan, I also have to pay for that. So college is very expensive and it's essentially living on your own. So you don't have that reliability on your parents anymore. But yeah, that's the transition into adulthood. So yeah, do we have any other questions? How do you go on about budgeting for college? Okay, so I essentially budget in many different ways, not necessarily on a financial standpoint. So I currently have a meal plan, which is called a 21 meal plan, which gives me 3 meals a day for 7 days a week. And I can't exceed that amount. So I have to budget if I'm eating more than 3 times a day. So like let's say I wanted to go in for a snack or anything like that, I would have to budget how many times and not go overboard. And in terms of budgeting time, the day goes very quickly. You don't have, the morning classes like where you would have a consecutive 8 hours of schooling at each day. So it's very easy to lose track of time. So you have to budget your time accordingly and look ahead to see if you have any other upcoming projects, homework assignments, anything like that, so that you don't fall behind. And here we have any resources that I can share about cutting costs. Um, yeah, so like different schools have grants opportunities or scholarships. So you should definitely look into your financial aid office or your school's website. Typically on the school's website, you will have information on scholarship opportunities that are either specific to the school or just, offered by the school. And looking into these calls, you can definitely save a lot of money. And here we have, when you first got a college, how much money should you walk in with? Or from the very beginning? Okay. So in high school, when I had my first job, this was something that I considered and that I thought of. This was one of my long-term goals, which was to have an emergency fund built up for myself. And this is a useful tip for all of you guys to get a head start and start building those emergency funds that you have if you have a job or any stream of income. And Doing so allowed me to have that money to rely on. So if I needed anything like money for books or transportation or paying out any remaining tuition balance, I had this source of income ready for me to use. And they also have opportunities like work study programs where students are able to work throughout the school. You can get a job through your school. And this could typically range from either working in a financial aid office or any other office environment or catering or anything like that. And that's a really good source of income. And yeah, so I didn't have any set amount, dollar amount that I was going to spend, but I saved enough so that I have some sort of financials to rely on if any expect expenses showed up unexpectedly. So yeah, definitely say start building your emergency fund now. What's it like budgeting your time in college compared to when I was in high school? This is a great question. In high school, I was a very, very busy guy. I was on the volleyball team. So I went to school from 8 to 3 every day, and that was where most of my time went towards. And then from 4 to 6, sometimes even 7 p.m., I would have volleyball practice or going away games or county games, tournaments, things like that, conditioning practice. And once I got home, it would be homework from 8 to 11 most of the time because I was in a lot of AP classes. So they gave a lot of the workload was very heavy. So everything was kind of outlined for me already since it was things that I did every day on a daily basis. I just had an already set schedule for me. So school, sports, homework, and then that's it. So when I first got into college, it was very different. You have a lot of free time. You may have classes that are in the morning and then spaced out like 3 hours. So it's not a consecutive, 8 hours a day like it is in high school. So it's very easy to, you know, take a nap or watch Netflix shows or get on TikTok. So you definitely have to budget your time there wisely because the day flies by quickly and you don't want to fall behind on any of your schoolwork because you didn't properly manage your time. And any advice for high school students so that they're prepared? Um, I definitely say, like I mentioned before, try to prioritize building your emergency fund now. It's, you know, easy to get started on as soon as you can, so then you have that finances um to fall back on, and you can definitely start budgeting time now. So then by the time you get to college, it's easy to follow a schedule that you build yourself and stay within those parameters that you set yourself towards. So like, okay, I want from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. to work on this business project that I have coming up or this paper that I have to write. So you can do this as a high school student. So when you're going home, I don't know the routine for you guys, but usually when I go home, I would shower, I would eat food. Then I would sit on YouTube for a couple of minutes, Netflix, catch up on an episode or two, and then I'd start doing my homework, which was probably not wise at the time. But then you can also, and then that's not to say you shouldn't have these leisure activities set in place. You can definitely do that throughout your day, but it's important to properly manage the time that you spend on these things so that you don't go overboard and let other tasks like doing homework or anything like that or work and get in your way. So yeah, definitely start budgeting your time now and budgeting your expenses. Some of you may have Netflix subscriptions or Spotify subscriptions, things like that are definitely key points to have when budgeting your finances and seeing where your money is coming in and where it's coming out. Okay, and it looks like that concludes our Q&A session. Thank you everyone for joining me today. Thank you, Mia, and I'll hope to see you guys next week in next week's session. And Mia will be emailing you guys the details. All right, thank you, everybody. Have a great day.